Wasabi guys, welcome back to another video talking about Commander cards, talking about Magic the Gathering finance. It's something I don't do too often, but I'm very interested in it recently, or I shouldn't say super recent, but if we're talking about earlier this year, if you go back to around February 2021, that's when everything sort of skyrocketed on the reserve list. So if you were paying attention, there's of course the average value and then there's a market value. Market's what you can realistically expect to get from it. But if we're just looking at one of the most popular dual lands of all time, Underground Sea, this is revised, and it touched around $1,000 above $1,000 for the average, and then the market value just kept going up, and now it's, close to around that same mark. I think it's interesting to talk about the potential for Magic the Gathering to be treated like the stock market. I know that's not always a popular opinion. Some people just want to play the game because they want to play the game, they enjoy it. But we can't ignore the impact here, just long term, how much value you can gain off of Magic cards. If we just go back 5 years, you go back to 2016 here, it was around $250, $260. So if you bought your dual lands back then, you're getting pretty much a 400% gain on that investment, which if you compare that to a lot of blue chip stocks, that's pretty good. Like you would take that if you had the majority of your investment, the majority of your portfolio into those types of stocks. We're talking about Apple, we're talking about Google. They're not going to give you massive gains on your investment, but anything that's double, triple, quadruple, it's pretty safe. And long term, you don't have to worry about it. You're not checking it every single day because it's a safe investment. That's really what the dual lands are. They're the best measurement of how well the reserve list is doing. Now, I bring this up because not last month, but the end of September, I made a video talking about this card here, Viridian Revel. And while not a lot of people said this, I had some people coming at me with, well, you're just talking about this to spike its value. So if we go back to before I talked about it, before I made that video, just looking in June, it was around $0.25 per card. That's very affordable, very cheap. Some people think, oh, you're just doing this void to turn around and make a killing selling these cards back. I have to be 100% honest with you. I have never sold a single Magic card over the internet. And the reason why that is because I don't think that Magic the Gathering cards are easy to move, especially not weird uncommons from Scars of Mirrodin. I might be able to generate some quick interest, but as you can see here, once I made that video, it spiked up to around $3. Now it's starting to settle a little bit under that, but it hasn't gone down completely. There is this weird portion of the community that actually thinks they can do something like the stock market. If you were following the Wall Street Bets guys around February of 2021 here, coincidentally around the same time a lot of those reserve list cards spiked, they did pretty much the same thing with GameStop. You had a lot of short seller activity there, so to try to step in and save GameStop, you had a ton of retail investors just decide, we're going to put a lot into this company. Same thing with AMC Theaters and all that. I don't want to say Magic the Gathering doesn't matter, but if you were to ask the average person around the world, what do you value more, owning part of a company or owning a piece of cardboard with, this card matters to some people, this card matters to nerds who play Magic the Gathering, they're always going to say owning part of a company is always more important. It's also easier to sell your shares. It's easier to do that. That's never really brought up as often whenever we talk about Magic the Gathering being basically another stock market. No doubt it's easy to find people to buy cards, but it's hard. It's really difficult to find people to buy cards for the price that you want to sell them. And that right there is the biggest problem, I think, with Magic the Gathering long term. Do not view it as the stock market. No one's right there willing to buy it back from you. I thought about this before making the video that it could be kind of considered like another precious metal, where you're not just buying a bunch of gold or silver to make a killing off of that investment within a year. You're usually looking to hold on to those for decades. Same thing's kind of true for Magic cards, especially the really old ones. The longer you hold on to them, they just get way more expensive. However, again, it's a lot easier to sell gold and silver. You go to any kind of coin exchange that buys gold and silver, they will give you pretty much exactly what it's worth. Whereas with Magic cards, you go to a store, you're always going to lose 30 to 40% of what you want. So you have to either list your cards on a marketplace, like TCG Player, or set up an auction on eBay. Try to get the most money possible. That's pretty difficult. You're likely just going to sit on these until you get the amount that you want, which kind of goes back to me talking about Viridian Revel. People actually believe that I just bought out hundreds and hundreds of Viridian Revels just to turn around and sell them for $3 each. You have to find people who are willing to buy them, And if I did something like that, it would be super easy to find out. And so far, no one's been able to come forward with any type of evidence that I go on like TCG Player and sell hundreds of cards that I talk about and call them underrated just to watch them spike. I would have to find people who actually want to spend that much money on this uncommon, and I'd have to find a lot of people. Would I feel confident in buying something like 100 Viridian Revels, turn around and sell them all? No, I would be spending a lot of money on Viridian Revels, and I might be able to sell some of them. I'm not a retailer. I don't own my own store. I view the reserve list as an investment, but I'm not going to do this to you guys where I just pick a card, I buy them out, and then I talk about them just to spike them. I don't do that. I think that's a bit unethical. I only talk about cards that I like, cards that I think would be a fun addition to a commander deck that I would play. Because that's really why I play Magic the Gathering. I play it for fun. If I'm looking to make money off of an investment, I'm going to the stock market. Because it's a lot easier to turn around and sell like 100 shares in Microsoft than it is to sell 100 of these. So my recommendation, if you are interested in investing, stick with the reserve list because that's pretty much guaranteed to have vertical movement. Cards like these, if they get reprinted, suddenly they're worth pennies again. But even then, even considering that the reserve list offers you better value long term, the buy-in point is eventually going to become too much. There's always a new company being formed. There's always something on the stock market that you can buy into low. You get a ton of penny stocks that are like that. But with the reserve list in Magic the Gathering, there are only so many good cards on the reserve list that are still affordable. So it's not like you can just buy out something that was really cheap 5 years ago anymore. The opportunities to get in low are pretty much gone. Now it's really just a bunch of collectors who are looking to buy anything that happens to be reserve list, like narwhals, just to see them eventually go up, which they might, but it's going to be a lot slower for those cards that aren't really good that happen to be reserve list. I'm not in this to make a ton of money off of recommendations. I think that's pretty silly. Just know that whenever I'm recommending a card, I'm recommending it because it has some playability in Commander, it has some undervalued potential in Commander, and at the end of the day, this is just for fun. I play this for fun. If I want to make money, I go elsewhere. Again, I've never sold a single Magic card over the internet. If I do sell, I sell for store credit, helping out my local game stores. So Void here signing off. I will see you all next time.